Hey everybody, Chief Meteorologist Brad Panovich here. We got to talk about Erin and its direct and indirect impacts that it's going to have on the Outer Banks in particular. And really, the whole East Coast is going to see these indirect impacts of rip currents, huge surf, dangerous waves, and likely beach erosion, especially eastern North Carolina, which jut out into the Atlantic. We'll talk more about this setup here because it is pretty unique to see this kind of set up with such a storm so far offshore, but this is a unique storm because Erin is going to grow in size. So here's a look at Erin. You could see Erin right now, still pretty strong storm, category 3, 4 strength, kind of been going back and forth. All the fluctuations have not been anything other than what's going on in the middle of the storm. So eye wall replacement cycles. That trend's going to continue for another 24 hours. So it could perk up or go down slightly, but it's still a very powerful hurricane. As it moves north, yes, it is going to weaken, but it's going to be a very strong hurricane, still probably category 3 or 2. The concern is the size. And what I mean by size is we are specifically talking about how big the cross section of the storm is, how large its wind field is going to become, as well as the water that it's going to be pushing. Now, the winds, while they are important offshore, they're not as important onshore. The winds aren't going to be a big impact. It's all about water when we look at this system. So I'm going to turn on the forecast here. We'll put on the cone, and you can see pretty consistent forecast here. I know we've had a lot of questions about, is it going to make that turn? It's a very confident forecast in the churn. The only uncertainty is how sharp this churn is. Is it closer to here or is it to here? It probably doesn't matter either way. It's going to be between United States and Bermuda. The problem is because it's so wide, it's still going to produce a lot of wave and surge action. The only difference that getting closer is going to do is increase the wind speeds for areas in eastern North Carolina and places like the Outer Banks. So let's talk about the confidence in the forecast. You can see all the ensembles, none of them bring them to the East Coast. Few outliers here are closer, but you could see we've actually, because of the amount of hurricane hunter flights, we've got a really good handle on this. And it's kind of rare to see a medium to high confidence level with this forecast. The ensembles are pretty clear. So the super ensembles looking very, very likely that it's going to stay way out there. We'll talk about the waves in a second, but I want to talk about the steering currents because this is the ridge, the high pressure over the Atlantic. You can see all the red. The flow around it is like this. There's a ridge over the middle of the United States, a little heat dome, and then you see a series of cold fronts coming down in troughs, which have opened up this window for this recurvature out to sea. So when I put this into motion, you're going to see that kind of develop here in a second. So let me just show you. If I get rid of my cursor here real quickly. So watch the evolution of this. You could see that opening and the weakness develop, and then the trough takes over. So you can see the European's actually the furthest west of all the guidance. So this would be kind of the worst case scenario. If it's more towards the mean of the other guidance, it would be even further east of here. But you get the idea on the push out to the east. So the concern is going to be water. And let's go back to our map here because I'm going to turn off the satellite imagery here for a second just to show you. Because folks that probably aren't familiar with the Outer Banks, you got to know that the Outer Banks, there's just not a lot of land there. So Hatteras Island, Ocracoke Island are definitely islands, okay? They look like they're connected, but they really aren't. And the reason you're seeing evacuations is that Highway 12 is basically on the beach in many locations. So there's going to be overwash, and the island's going to be cut off. Ocracoke, the same thing. There's going to be areas that are not going to be reachable for days because of the waves. And the waves are the big story. We can look at the forecast. This is the forecast wave guidance that we get. And I'm going to move this over just so you can see it a little bit better. But you get the idea that we're going to see some pretty significant waves along the line of the system. So near the center, I saw some crazy social media posts about 100-foot waves. There's no 100-foot waves, guys. If that were to happen, it would be out to sea. It's not going to be near the coast. You're talking 30, 40-foot waves more than likely. So we can look at some of the buoys here. Let's look at a buoy close to the center. This is way out in Hatteras. You can see the forecast wave height is up here around 42 feet. Now that's well offshore. You can see where that buoy is. Another one to the right of the center. This is between Bermuda and the United States. You're looking at 36-foot waves. The waves that we've seen so far, there's a buoy very close near the Bahamas. It actually peaked around 30 feet. It's already fallen back from the forecast. So that should give you an idea of reality of the waves, not some social media post. Let's look closer in though. So we get closer in. This is Diamond Shoals off the Outer Banks. That's about 25-foot waves. You get really close. We'll go into some of these closer areas like Oregon Inlet just offshore there. You're looking at 23-foot waves. So there's going to be 20 footers very close to the Outer Banks. Onslow Bay, 20 feet. Well, so you get the idea. Anywhere here in eastern North Carolina, you're going to get 15 to 20-foot swells and waves. That's going to bring some significant beach erosion, and that's going to cut off Highway 12 in many locations. We can look at that from the European guidance as well, from the wind speeds. The wind speeds you could see coming up. And again, this is probably the most extreme example, but right now the gust on the Outer Banks peaking around 56 miles per hour. I think you're definitely going to have tropical storm force winds on the Outer Banks. So please heed all warnings to evacuate. You need to get off the Outer Banks because it's not so much the danger, it's the fact that you can be cut off for days. So if you need help, you're not going to get any. So you're seeing the warnings like, hey, leave everything. You're probably not going to have power. You might not have access to the road for a couple days. So that means emergency services, food, water, supplies. Leave the island. There will be some locals that'll stay that are used to this because this does happen. But if you're any vulnerable populations, you need to leave immediately, especially visitors and tourists. Get off the Hatteras and Ocracoke. And I would stay away from the Outer Banks through the middle of the week. So the timing wise, we showed you quickly some of these. And just to give you an idea when the worst is going to happen, you still got all day today and most of tomorrow. Things ramp up Wednesday afternoon into Thursday. So think Wednesday night, Thursday is going to be the worst of this. Things will improve dramatically as we go into Friday. But Wednesday, late into Thursday is the worst of it. And that's the timing. You can see the track here, keeping it just off the coast. So my word of advice, if you're in the Outer Banks, take this storm very seriously. It may never come close to you, but because of the size of the storm, it's going to cause massive issues. And just speaking of that, we can put up some of the wind radii here real quickly just to show you. So real quickly, you can look at the wind radii, keeping the worst winds offshore, but it wouldn't be much for this to slide a little bit further west. And again, the sharpness of this churn, does it happen here and go like this, or does it happen here and like this? The Outer Banks just stick out. It's just, that's why they get hit so often. And if you're in Outer Banks, you're used to this because you stick out far enough to get clipped by these recurving storms. And because of the size, and remember, the size of the storm we're talking about, not intensity, but how wide the storm is going to be, it's going to be getting bigger. And it already has. If you look at some of the satellite data today, you could see that showing up pretty clearly in some of the guidance as well as the current satellite imagery. I'll turn off the wind radii here. But you can see it's gotten bigger over time. It is certainly a large storm. And that amount of water it's going to push. Remember, the wind offshore is going to do the damage. It's pushing water all towards the coast. So when it makes this churn, it's like a bulldozer. Think of it as a big plow pushing water towards the coast. And even though it peels off, that surge of water is going to be still heading towards the Carolinas and the East Coast. So be prepared. Water, water, water is our number one concern with this system. That includes rip currents, high surf, beach erosion, and overwash, I should say. Coastal flooding is going to be a huge issue, especially during high tide.